I have had more than one encounter with Trump, and that's why I tried to kill that son of a bitch, because he is a fucking monster. It's why I have not shut up about just how absolutely abhorrent he is as a human being, and that's why I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I had decided, I had already seen enough other people die that in my mind I thought, well, they're just going to kill me too at some point, right? I'm not going to survive to be an adult from this. So in my mind, he was the biggest pile of shit that I had ever had to have any contact with. So I was going to take him with me. And
how often did Trump assault you? Do you remember?
I can remember two, just in and out, Mm-hmm. So that's why I remember him so clearly. I have had more than one encounter with Trump, and that's why I tried to kill that son of a bitch, because he is a fucking monster. It's why I have not shut up about just how absolutely abhorrent he is as a human being, and that's why I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I had decided, I had already seen enough other people die that in my mind I thought, well, they're just going to kill me too at some point, right? I'm not going to survive to be an adult from this. So in my mind, he was the biggest pile of shit that I had ever had to have any contact with. So I was going to take him with me. And
how often did Trump assault you? Do you remember?
I can remember two specifically. A third one that I think, and I think I was around him more than just those 3 times, but only 3 times do I kind of remember. I can remember at one point him asking the people that were kind of running that party or whatever it was at that farm, he wanted to kill somebody. He wanted to murder somebody. And they said, hey, that's not this kind of party. You can't do that. And they, in lieu of doing that, they said, well, we've got some puppies. If you just want to kill something, we've got to get rid of them anyway. So I can remember him taking those puppies one by one, and like he snapped one of the puppies' necks. He cut one open and let it just howl and writhe in pain while it died. Held one under some water to kill it. He wanted to kill those puppies in whatever gruesome way, to experience, I guess, seeing them suffer in different ways. What his kink is, I guess, if you want to call it that, is watching people suffer. He likes to destroy people physically, mentally, during the process of the assault. That's why he stands out so much in my memory. And it's physical pain, and then it's also, degrading and all of that. But his thing was to just try to destroy human beings to the utmost that he could possibly do it, which is why I attacked him.
Yeah, that's understandable. So,
I can tell you this, the last one, okay, so this was after they had killed the Samantha, this is the black girl that I made the one of the movies with.
Yeah. And these were, let me just ask a question just to clarify. So when Samantha was killed, these were all of these parties at the farm or similar locations to the farm? Where there was...
it was multiple farms.
Multiple farms, and usually it was parties. So there was individuals like Trump that were flown in to the parties. And
then and they would have like a building, a house, and they would usually have like a tent set up, and it was almost like a little, I don't want to say a fair. It wasn't that big. They didn't have rides or anything, but it was a kind of a coordinated deal, Sometimes they would have the bare knuckle fighting. That probably is how my dad got involved with these people, because you've got boxing and stuff like that on TV, but that's really all you had back in the 70s and 80s. The MMA type of stuff wasn't allowed, and these fights were a little more gruesome. They didn't fight to the death or anything like that, but they were bloody, and these were fights, and not just boxing. And so the rich people would pay to see that. Sometimes they'd have like a band playing, just like what you would expect at like a fair or something,
So the rich folks would get flown in, associated with Epstein, and they would pay to watch the victims fight. The victims were all underage. And would they pay to then assault the victims after the fights or during the fights? And they'd pay to torture the victims and rape the victims.
Yes.
And kill the victims.
But now some of the fights were adults. So if they had some big old country boy and some other guy, they would pay to see that. They would also pay to watch the kids fight, and they did pay to watch me fight. I would fight other kids, and my dad was my initial trainer for me to learn how to fight. I would later go on to be a boxer, an amateur boxer. But that's how I got my start in all of that. So, yes, they would have paid for that. And the experiences were different each time. There wasn't like a set thing. You never really knew what was going to happen. So, part of it, a lot of it just comes down to money, So if they offered $5,000 to have sex with me, then my dad was willing to do that. Whatever the dollar amounts were, I don't know.
Sasha, that isn't sex. That's sexual assault.
Right.
I mean, I just want to say something first. And they'd pay to torture the victims and rape the victims.
Yes.
And kill the victims.
But now some of the fights were adults. So if they had some big old country boy and some other guy, they would pay to see that. They would also pay to watch the kids fight, and they did pay to watch me fight. I would fight other kids, and my dad was my initial trainer for me to learn how to fight. I would later go on to be a boxer, an amateur boxer. But that's how I got my start in all of that. So, yes, they would have paid for that. And the experiences were different each time. There wasn't like a set thing. You never really knew what was going to happen. So, part of it, a lot of it just comes down to money, So if they offered $5,000 to have sex with me, then my dad was willing to do that. Whatever the dollar amounts were, I don't know.
Sasha, that isn't sex. That's sexual assault.
Right.
I mean, I just want to say something first. I think you're extremely brave. You behave extremely strong, like a warrior. And I just want to stop and say it's important to me to say that, because a lot of folks, wouldn't even survive such trauma, but you've survived, and you conduct yourself with dignity and gracefully, and it's important to me to say that. I hope you know that. I hope you have a sense of your own honor and chivalrousness, especially what you told me in terms of drugs they used on you and how they lured you, drugged to behave monstrous towards other kids. I understand the context.
I can remember. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I can remember some arm of law enforcement showing me video of me harming one of the people that they were filming me with. Now, I don't know how that came about, whether they drugged me and I lost my mind, or they told me to do it. I don't know the circumstances, but I can remember being in that room and them saying, well, you did this. And it may have not even been law enforcement. It may have been, like the people that were running that. But I can remember being really upset because I had no recollection of having done that. It was me in the video, and I was beating a girl senseless. And I didn't kill her or anything like that, but I you know.
Yeah.
So, and I have a feeling, this part I can't prove because I only have my own experiences, but what the whole thing seems to be is that they first abuse you, then they get you on film abusing others, and now they have you trapped as well.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about the abuse that they did to you. If they want you to be a legacy victim, somebody that they can use in the future, well, then they've got to get you on tape doing monstrous things to other people as well, because now they have the leverage to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, no, and you know what? You're exactly right. That's exactly the tactic. And the tactic is insidious because have you ever heard of the torture technique a lot of occult practitioners use? It's called inversion torture. Inversion magic isn't magic. Sorcery is just smoke and mirrors nonsense, deception techniques. But it's sort of inversion technique where to try to linguistically manipulate the victims to try to get the victims in a position where the victims doubt whether the victims, are good or not.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the case with a lot of the Republicans you mentioned. Like you said, Clarence Thomas and Lindsey Graham were at these parties. You can't remember if Lindsey Graham and Clarence Thomas participated. And it's sort of a question of, did they participate? Were they blackmailed because they were there, attended the parties, but they didn't participate? Can you tell me much more about Clarence Thomas and Lindsey Graham?
I know the least about him. The only reason that I can remember him is because he was a black man. And I'm sorry, but that club is pretty much just white folks. So having a black person there was very unusual. So he stood out. But the only thing that I can really say is that I remembered him being there, and then I remember what a big deal it was in our household when he got confirmed onto the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Because my dad was excited about that because of how high up he was. Now, I can't swear. I may have been assaulted by Clarence Thomas, but I cannot swear to that. If he did assault me, then it was not to the level of something that scared me to the point where I needed to remember it, if that's a good way to put that, which Trump rose to that, and Andy Biggs rose to that, and Jim Jordan rose to that because he was dangerous to me because I could keep most people away from me with my fists, but, he was a good wrestler, so, he scared me in that sense that this is a person that I can't, that I can't keep away from me with my fists. Lindsey Graham, I am fairly sure he has assaulted me, but I just can't put my hand on a Bible and swear to that.
Yeah.
I know that he was there. I can remember it. He just like Jim Jordan, he has very distinct mannerisms, and his voice is a little unusual as well. So I could remember his voice, I could remember his mannerisms, and then obviously how he looks. So I can put him there, but I just can't. I can't say he did this or he did that exactly. I just can't.
Okay. So
I wish that I could provide more information on that because I think some things went on, but that's just not enough for me to point a finger and make an accusation. But he was there. I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, that's enough, and I know that some sorts of interviews we can look at a different time to see if there is any more information you remember. But what you do remember, I just want you to know what you remember to know, that what you remember is extremely important and is extremely helpful. I know you want to be able to remember more, and the memories are in there. And, I just want to approach the situation delicately because,
some of the other memories are just vague. I can, and I have been very careful too not to reach out further, because there are some other names that I could mention that I believe were there, that I know for a fact that my parents talked about, but I don't have a clear enough recollection of anything. Like, I can tell you 100% sure that they talked about Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe he was ever at one of those parties that I was at. But his name was brought up more than once.
During extremely helpful. I know you want to be able to remember more, and the memories are in there. And, you know, I just want to approach the situation delicately because, you know,
some of the other memories are just vague. You know, I can, and I have been very careful too not to reach out further, because there are some other names that I could mention that I believe were there, that I know for a fact that my parents talked about, but I don't have a clear enough recollection of anything. Like, I can tell you 100% sure that they talked about Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe he was ever at one of those parties that I was at. But his name was brought up more than once.
During the 1980s?
Yes.
Okay.
Vladimir Putin. I don't know even when he ascended to the presidency, but I remember the name because it was so unusual. Now, at that point, he may have just been, you know, one of the Russian oligarchs or whatever, but his name came up, and I remember it just because it's an unusual name, Vladimir Putin, you know. But I don't believe he was ever there. So that is like, I don't know, there are other names like that too.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about
I
Putin
remember
more.
Clinton's name being brought up, but I don't ever remember seeing it.
So Clinton was mentioned, but you never saw Clinton.
Not that I can recall. And that's another thing too. I may have had interactions with additional people, but during some of them, I was so drugged out of my mind, I don't really remember what happened. You know?
Yeah. When you heard them talk about Putin, so it was at one of the parties at one of the farms, do you remember what they were saying about Putin?
Just that he was some sort of like foreigner that was very important. I didn't know any more. You know, the name was just unusual, and they mentioned his name. You know, they kind of had fun saying his name. You know, Vladimir. You know, does he like to go by Vlad or this or that? But the meeting with that person, I don't think ever materialized. I think it was just something that was discussed and never happened. Now, if he has other connections, you know, and he very well may, that's possible. But I can just remember at those parties, there were people that had strange accents.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. That's all I could say. I couldn't point and say, well, this person was from Spain or this person was from Portugal. I have no idea. But what I do know for a fact is not every person at those parties was American.
Yeah.
I know that's not a lot, but I only remember what I
have a question with Trump. I mean, with Putin. Did you get the sense that the party attendees, that the clients were interested in Putin? There was something they wanted from Putin. They thought they could get money from Putin, influence from Putin. Did you have any sense of that?
The only sense that I had was that this was for the rich people, regardless of where they were from. So at this point in my child brain, I knew that there were rich people, and those people got to do whatever they wanted, and then there were poor people like me, and those people, you know, that was the dynamic. So, you know, that's it. I never heard them say anything about blackmailing and stuff like that, but I can remember them showing me a video of me doing bad stuff, and then I can remember people telling me that if I ever talked about it, what I had done was illegal too. And a lot of that was just bullshit because I was just a kid and they were making me do this stuff.
Yeah.
But
talk about malevolent hypocrisy, dude. They were just utterly grotesque. They were trafficking you, they were assaulting you, they were drugging you, and then they were trying to
they were trying to make me feel guilty about any of it happening. You.
Exactly. When you were in a situation because they were trafficking you.
The last encounter with Trump, the one where I injured him, was the one that I remember the most vividly, and this was the setup for that. I can remember my dad, before we went to the farm, this was when we lived in Enterprise, Alabama.
Yeah.
So it would have been about 81 to 82, somewhere in there, maybe as late as 83. But he said there may be somebody that you know there. And I can remember the look on his face, and it scared the shit out of me. But anyway, when I got to the farm, of course, I'm scared at the farm because I don't know what's going to happen. But the first person that comes up to me is a girl named Patricia. This is a girl that I had been trafficked with before. And she came running up to me and, said hello or whatever. She was about my same age, around 12 or 13. And I can remember my dad saying, well, why don't you guys go run off or whatever and have fun? And I can remember not knowing what to do in that instance because, these parties weren't for me. I wasn't. And then he said something to the effect of, no, it's not like that for you anymore. You're a man now. You can just go out and have fun. Well, we went to go have sex. So we went and found a room and started having sex. And while we were having sex, people burst into the room. It would have been 4, 5, 6 guys, big guys, adults. At least one of them had a gun. I think 2 or 3 of them had guns. But they came in, they assaulted her, they beat on her, and then they shot her while she was still in the bed. They didn't beat or assault me, but what they said was, if you don't do everything that the next person coming in here wants, we're going to shoot you just like we did her. And I can remember them having like an argument because they shot her in the bed and then they had to go find another mattress. Well, that's when Trump came in. So that's why I remember him so vividly. And it was at that point I had already decided they're probably just going to kill me anyway. I'm going to take him with me. And I tried, but I did not.
How did you... So, obviously Trump was extremely violent. Trump's a sadistic psychopath. When Trump assaulted you, so sexual assault and physical assault?
Yes.
And
so, at one point, I kind of acquiesced to whatever sexual things that he wanted to do. But at some point, he wanted me to have sex with him. So he laid down on his stomach, and there was a wooden tent stake that was in the room. And I had been eyeballing it as a weapon. And what I did was put the condom on the wooden tent stake, put it inside of him, and I kicked it as hard as I could. And that's why he had to get life flighted out, because I ripped him open.
Sweet. Do you ever watch the movie The Equalizer?
No, I haven't seen it.
Denzel Washington, sort of like justice when everyone involved in American law enforcement can't get any justice. That would be a sort of situation, obviously. I laughed because there's poetic justice there, Sascha.
Well, that was what facilitated. Not only did I get really assaulted by Andy Biggs, I also got assaulted by like an entire party's worth of people. They took...
After Trump was airlifted out?
added a whole nother party. So they took me to another party after that, and because I had done that to one of those rich people, they took me from like station to station, and they could do whatever they wanted. Most of them just beat on me. I can remember me standing there. I'd already gotten beaten up, I don't know, 5-6 times, and I can remember somebody urinated on me, and I said, "Thank you for not hurting me," and he just hauled off and punched me in the side of the head and knocked me out. I can remember leaving that party, and my dad was just kind of dragging me out of there. It was another instance, just like with Andy Biggs, where I got beaten to the point where, the room was spinning. I was nauseous, probably throwing up, maybe some broken bones, badly.
And how many perpetrators did you say again? 20 to 40? 25 to 40 perpetrators?
People that were there, yes. I would say probably 8 or 10 that just beat the absolute hell out of me. And some of them probably sexually assaulted me, but I can't remember. I can remember getting hurt, just getting beaten up and,
Was that before you tried to defend yourself from Trump or after? Do you remember?
That was after. That was as a punishment, if you want to call it that. What happened at that party was part of the punishment, and then I can remember them saying that this is the last of it when I had to go see Andy Biggs, but Andy Biggs almost fucking killed me. So I remember him to this day.
So when Andy Biggs almost killed you was after Trump as well?
Yes.
Okay.
After Andy Biggs was after Trump. The party that a whole bunch of people assaulted me was after that, and then the last one was Andy Biggs, and then I can remember my dad saying no more. I can remember him even kind of breaking down a little bit, like psychologically, because I guess the repeated watching me just get destroyed by people. You got to understand, it's not like boo-boos and Band-Aids. They were breaking ribs and really hurting me. I've got like a deformed rib cage to this day.
No, sounds like they were trying to torture you just to the point of death, to punish you and to send a message.
They tried over and over again to hint to me to get me to kill myself. Yeah. And I can remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to kill myself because that's what they want. So, I kind of survived some of that just out of spite, to be honest with you. There's really no other way to put it, but I wasn't going to. I can remember hating my mom so much that I just did not want to give her the satisfaction.
Yeah.
She, as bad as my dad was, Marilyn Riley was even more evil. Her thing was sexually torturing me. So and she enjoyed sexually torturing Samantha when they went and got her.
And Samantha was the runaway that Riley,
yes,
that
William and she lived in a brothel, basically a house where they had 4 or 5 underage girls that they had scooped up from wherever they got them from, and they would use those girls at these parties. Well, at one time they sent me to go be a part of that brothel. So that's when I made friends with Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and those are the only 3 that I can remember their names. But Sarah committed suicide, Samantha was tortured to death, and Patricia was the girl that got shot in the bed before Trump came in.
Did Patricia die?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and all 3 died?
Yes. Yes.
So Samantha was the runaway that was murdered by your adoptive parents.
Yes.
Patricia committed suicide. Sarah committed suicide, and Patricia was murdered in the bed before Trump came in, and then they threatened you and said to let Trump do whatever Trump wanted to do to you, or they would shoot you in the head as well.
Yes. Yes.